times may change, seasons may change. You know, newborn is different than toddler, is different than preschool. All of it's different than high school.
Yeah.
But those times, those sacred spaces where you have to disciple your kids, those don't change.
Yeah.
Right.
It is the same time when we eat together, when we're going about our days, when we're driving, when we're waking, when we're sleeping. Those are the same rhythms that God has given us to have those opportunities.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember many times my kids, I had a dancer in my world. And when we would have to drive her to dance, you know, that was one of the best opportunities that we could share time. It was undivided attention in the car. And you could just have those opportunities to talk to them about a plethora of different things. And then once they started driving and they could go themselves, we've really missed that. Like we missed that opportunity that we could have to share times or delve a little bit deeper into a subject. And sometimes they don't even want to talk, and you can just sit there in silence even. And that's when my prayer time was great.
Welcome back. It's Well-Grounded Season 2 around here. We are so happy to continue a conversation that we started.
Yes.
So we're jumping in. I'm Leigh Ann.
And I'm Diane, and we're two lifelong friends just enjoying time over coffee and conversations.
And water.
Today. And we are continuing that conversation, like Leigh Ann just said, that our guest came and spoke to last time, Kelly, and it's all about sharing your faith with your kids. And it was just a very enlightening conversation that we had with her. She was very relaxed and just so good to speak to and just to speak with about this subject.
Yes. And we really encourage you to go back and watch. There's really not an episode to miss in season 2.
Yeah.
So we appreciate all of you who are just making sure you watch every single one as soon as they drop. But those of you that need to catch up or you're just joining us, please jump in. But you're kind of see this format this season with Sisterhood and Motherhood, this awesome series of conversations where we're having a guest in, and then we're taking a minute to really slow down, go a little deeper on a topic, and really so that we don't
reflect
have to,
on it.
Yeah, we don't have to interrupt our guest as much because we still want to talk about what we want to talk about. So to be able to hear their perspective on a topic, and we have invited them specifically because of things we've observed in the lives of our friends.
Yeah.
All part of that community. Part of that.
The ages and stages of the Sisterhood of Motherhood.
And that sisterhood is sharing that best practices, which I know you've mentioned before, but that was really our heart in this, in planning, what were the topics to tackle. So this one in particular could be everything from baby all the way up to adult kids, which is where we're navigating and doing a lot of reading and praying and really just trying to invest in our kids at the level where they are now. But we want to go back. The episode with Kelly McMurray, our sweet friend who shared about some things that she's done. She grew up as a pastor's kid. Now she's a pastor's wife. But she really emphasized that the things that she's applying as a mom have less to do about the ministry job and just living it. Right there with your kids. So
before we really get started, we're just going to have a little pause to just remind everybody what our latte moment was.
Yes, from the last episode.
We did do a this was a really fun one. So if you did not watch that episode, go back and get this recipe. It's called a s'mores frappe. And I'm just going to tell you, it definitely, you even called it in the episode dessert in a glass. And I was like, it definitely is. So it is a really fun one. And I would just encourage you, especially in this winter weather that we're having, that you can definitely go back and do that. And always make sure, if you're always a listener on Spotify or Apple, tune into us on YouTube one time.
Yes.
You're gonna love to see us in action and see what we do on the camera. But if not, you can always listen to us on all those different channels and always find us on Well-Grounded Podcast on Instagram. Make sure you share, and subscribe.
Yes. And you mentioned in the last episode that we need to be, or in a recent episode, that we need to throw out an offer for people to give us their coffee recipes at some point too. So be watching for that. We do giveaways. We do all kinds of fun things on Instagram. So join us there for the conversation.
Definitely. It keeps us going in between each episode because we come out every 2 weeks. And so it's kind of nice that we do a lot of things in between on Instagram and even on our Facebook page that, it does show, just gives you a little behind the scenes. So if you're looking for some of those behind the scene moments, we do post those as well.
And so we can take that topic and like expand it out over that time. So speaking of that, we share faith with our kids quite a bit.
Always.
And it is definitely what we would call 24/7.
Yes.
Everything is related to that. Everything comes back to that. We have two roads in life, the godly mindset or a worldly mindset.
Yeah.
And we just really want to equip our kids and strengthen them in the word. And you lay that foundation, and we're going to talk about this, how it looks at different ages and stages today. But you lay a foundation, and then you can just keep building on that. So one of the things that we mentioned quickly in our interview with Kelly was what that looks like when they're really little. And she has some children's ministry background and some of that. And so she mentioned that repetition that you do with littles. So you are introducing concepts to them. You're pouring the word into them. They're memorizing scriptures. They're like, God made the world, like those big biblical
you think
world
too, like the VBS model, like that you're constantly, simple kind of little, there's those songs with all the motions. And you can do those wherever, whether at your home or in a park or if you're in the car even. Right.
And you're repeating them over and over until it's absorbed in. And then as they get older, there's the application of it. And there's more of like the critical thinking in this. Okay, I know this is truth. How does that apply when a text conversation goes sideways?
Or I love how she brought in the whole peer part about it. Because, as your kids, especially girls, I think that as they start to delve into it and maybe they get some pushback from their friends or they're pushing them on a concept or something that's come up in a conversation. And so I think it is important that you kind of have a plan almost even going into that.
That you're teaching a future teacher. You're teaching them how to do it so that they can apply it to their own lives. And so that they can give wise counsel to friends and peers and then grow up and be in the sisterhood of motherhood community with their friends.
There you go.
It really is. That's the whole idea of this is that there's a generational knowledge transfer. So we're transferring it, things that you may learn how to make a family recipe or a favorite coffee drink or a favorite tea or something. You pass that on so that it's second nature to your kids. That's also the case when we get into sharing your faith. So sharing your faith so that they have confidence to share their faith. So a couple of practical things we wanted to talk about. Interrupt me if you wanted to.
No, you're good.
If I missed anything. I just wanted to say a couple of things. We want to make sure that those communication lines stay open with our kids because there are times, especially when they get into more middle school, high school level, they don't like everything you're telling them to do. There can be a wall there and
silence. There can be that very awkward silence that happens. And so you kind of have to navigate towards that. You don't even know what it is. And sometimes you have to go around and around to get there, but then eventually you will, be persistent because that silence, that wall of silence will go away.
And that you're not trying to be their Holy Spirit. If they have their own walk with the Lord, then they are going to need to listen and lean in on that. And to say, asking them, what is the Lord teaching you? What is the application of this so that they can say it back to you? But also just that when there's a wall there that we keep pursuing it and not give up. Because I think it hurts our feelings sometimes and we get a little bit like, why don't you want to share this with me?
A theme that you've heard throughout this season is about community and people, and you have to have other people in their lives. I mean, you have always been a big person in my kids' lives, and I know that sometimes they don't want to talk to mom. They don't want to talk to dad. They don't want to talk to people that they really know, but they'll talk to other people. And whether it's a teacher or a trusted friend's mom, things like that. And so it is important that you cultivate those relationships even when they're even younger, so that when they're older, they're going to have a history with that person so that they can go back and talk to them about it. And you can even, I know I'm not putting words in your mouth, but you've done this many times for me where you've been able to be like, well, I've seen you do this in life and I've seen you, so you can use those examples to encourage them. Right.
And having that relationship that builds up, it's trustworthy so that we were saying trusted. And I want to clarify that it's someone that you as a parent trust to give good godly counsel, but it's also that someone that child
Yeah.
or young adult trusts.
Yeah.
So it's a person that they know is coming, wants the best for them,
Yeah.
has that good for them. But when we talk about passing faith from generation to generation, sometimes it's a family member, but sometimes it's somebody
someone else.
in that extended community that we want to pour into them. So,
Yeah.
but a couple of ways that we can do that. I just wanted to make sure we highlight from our last conversation
Yeah.
that went really quickly.
Yeah.
And so that's what's the fun of this, is getting to slow that down.
Yeah.
We want to maximize faith conversations. There's no waste.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
a little phrase
No
we used.
waste.
No waste.
Yeah.
If you're in the car,
Yeah.
if you are going to do an activity together
Yeah.
as a family,
Yeah.
something practical that has to get done. Hey, ride with me. Let's go get your
Yeah.
oil changed in your car, or
Yeah.
let's go drop your car off and you come with me.
Definitely
setting up-
seize those opportunities so that you can maximize the time, because sometimes those time frames go really fast.
Right.
In 5 minutes, it does. Sometimes I think we get bogged down with thinking, oh, I don't have an hour, I don't have 2 hours.
Yeah.
We're literally talking five to
Right.
10 minutes here.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, we're kind of addressing when they're older and their lives get busier,
Yeah.
and you have
Yeah.
to snatch the moments. But when they are younger, to not waste either,
Yeah.
because that is the time when you have them more captive.
Yeah.
To say, church is a priority, Bible study is a priority,
Yeah.
spending time in the Word and learning truth, so that when
Yeah.
the world is starting to push on them, that they have
They have that.
know the
Yeah.
difference. They
Yeah.
know the truth from the counterfeit.
Yes.
The other thing is that we talked about was some families have that more formal routine with things, and it gets harder to hold on to it. You kind of
Yeah.
grieve that a little bit.
Yeah.
That if you had a certain some family routines with things and rhythms that allowed you to go deeper, or
Yeah.
have like a good. We always kind of started off strong on like Advent.
Oh,
I started so many good Advent.
yes.
Day 1, day 2, day 3. Okay, we're running out.
By
Okay,
7,
everybody
8, 9, 10. Yeah. You're
read those 2 on your own, and we'll get back together.
Yes.
But you're still doing something.
Yeah.
And we joke about not finishing things, but everything that you pour in
Yeah.
counts.
Yeah.
And I know for those that, like, I don't want to start something and not finish it. I understand that, and I admire you for that. But also, life is a little wild sometimes. And
Yeah.
so to be able to just say, if we did 2 or 3 of these, it's more than 0.
Yeah.
So
what is really neat about what you were just saying is that Kelly even talks about that when we said the question of what would you tell your younger self,
Oh, yes.
she told herself that she would just give her grace.
Yes,
And it's
yes.
okay. Take it easy.
Right.
She would told her perfectionist self, not to worry so much about those
Right.
things, because it, just kind of go with the flow a little bit more. And I just thought that was great advice, because, I think as you grow in your motherhood and you grow in your journey of being a mom, and I do think it changes from if you have one child to multiple children.
Right.
I will definitely say that happens.
Yes.
You
Yes.
get a lot more relaxed with the latter children than you do in the beginning, but we're just trying to give you that little, brief snippet right now to just do that. I think Kelly had great advice about that.
Yeah, and to be able to say the whatever it is, whether it's the Bible reading plan or the devotional book or whatever it is, it's something to get the conversation started sometimes.
Yeah.
And then if they are asking their own questions, or they're involved in it in a different way, let them kind of lead that a little bit, and that you're ready to respond. Another thing we talked about, and I wanted to have you share about this, because we mentioned pouring in for our own growth spiritually, so that we have something to pour out.
Yeah.
And I know that you shared with me that you have a study that you've done and some things. So
it's truly, I've done this more than one time. I would say I'm probably on at least 5 or more times, but it is
one for each kid. You have 4 kids.
I know, right? 4 kids. It is a really good study. It's Priscilla Shire, and it's the Armor of God study. And I'm just giving a shout out to that today. If you can tell, all of these,
I love it.
Earmarks, notes. I mean, this book is highlighted up and down.
Love
and
it.
what I think is just important about this is when especially my girls, as they got into the high school years, and you are in a battle
Spiritual
for your
warfare.
mind
Yep.
and your just everything every day, they would sometimes come come to me and they were just so downtrodden. And so this study I did multiple times with my church and ladies friends, and then but I've been able to apply it to them. And so just being able to teach them how you can have the belt of truth and the breastplate of righteousness, the shoes of peace, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit, you know, and how you put all of those together as spiritual armor. Right. It's honestly, to me, one of the best things that I've done for myself. And like you said, because I've gained that knowledge, then I can pass it on to them as well. She also has a study I wanted to share that not only for, you know, women, but she has a study that's for teens and for kids. Cool. And this is probably a little, but it is really a neat study, and it's down a little bit more on their level. Okay. But it's a workbook, and you can do that together.
What a neat idea to do a study for yourself and then have some applications if your kids are younger to be able to say, I can pull this out and then say, hey, mommy's doing this same study right now. And I want to have them come alongside. I love that. Yeah. I just think that's incredible. And being able to say, hey, I'm reading in Ephesians right now, and the armor of God is in here, and it's peppering that in. It's just keep on.
And I can't tell you how many times that over the course of a year that I send them an image. You know, I Google scripture a lot, and then I find an image of that, and I will send that to my friends and my kids all the time. They probably get annoyed with me a little bit, but that's my thing.
Oh, you know, that's a comfort thing for them.
And so, but I have sent them dozens of times the armor of God, and it's sometimes when they're just having that bad day and they just kind of feel a little bit, you know, down in the depths. So I said, hey, put it on.
Like, where are you exposed right now? Which part of the armor needs to be girded up? Yes. I love it. That one of the things that I have done, this has been years ago now. I was doing some teaching and some sharing back in the day when the kids were younger, and I did some research on my family history with our kind of spiritual legacy, passing faith on from one generation to the next, and to be able to share our story so that
very important. Yeah.
We say, you know, my grandmother asked Jesus into her heart. She walked to Vacation Bible School, and she was the first believer in our family that we know of. There may have been others, but they didn't talk about their faith, so we don't know. So she didn't have anybody at home telling her to do this. She just got invited to VBS, little Vacation Bible School,
love that.
And walked there, you know, and then her faith grew. She grew up to get married and have children, and made that an integral part of their lives. Yeah. And that's the legacy that I have 2 generations later, where this is normal. This is just an everyday thing for us. But it started with one person in the family saying, this matters. I'm going to take authority in this. I'm going to learn. I'm going to study. She loved to study the word, and she modeled that for us. And so you may feel like, I don't even know where to start. Nobody taught me how to do this. Or you may be like, everybody has, in my whole family, are little Bible scholars running around. Yeah. Either way, you can apply that to your kids. I think so. And strengthen that so that your kids have that really good head start.
Well, and I did not have parents that, you know, openly had the Bible open at home and things. I did go, and it was through youth group and through Campus Crusade for Christ and for different things. Even when I went on to college, that I was modeled that through friends and different people. And that's where my spiritual walk deepened. Wow. And I was kind of taught how to have that daily walk. It wasn't just a Sunday walk.
Right.
And it was, to me, you know, so those people that are in your lives sometimes, you know, and if you're one of those people, don't lessen that, you know, realize that what you're doing is very important. It really, you know, plants those seeds of faith, and then different people around in your circles help to water them and help you to grow for sure.
And then they're passing that on too. Yeah. Just like you texting your kids with it. Yeah. You're discipling them. And we mentioned this really quickly at the beginning of the episode with Kelly, that some people love their kids. They love the Lord and they're praying over their kids, but they are not discipling them in a way that is intentional and that is making that effort to say, hey, this matters. Yeah. Let me speak truth into your life in this situation. Let me come alongside you and pray for you, and to do that. So,
and I think it's good to mention that you're going to go through dry spells. You're going to have periods when, that's when I feel, and I've been very honest with some of my friends, even when I'm in a dry spell and I'm like, I need your help, fill in the gap for me, or I'm just tired or weary. Kelly Spencer talked about that in the beginning of season 2, that, do not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest.
Yes.
And that's what we're going for. We want that harvest, because sometimes we are tired and we are weary.
Right.
And so I think that that's important to realize. I did want to share one of Kelly's verses that she did mention.
Absolutely.
And she came from, it was from Deuteronomy 4:6-8. And she's talking about all the applications, the ways that you can pray over your children and have this in your life, so that you can just be constantly equipping them in the word. And it says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These words that I'm giving you today are to be in your heart. Repeat them to your children. Talk about them when you sit in your house and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Bind them as a sign on your hand and let them be a symbol on your forehead. Write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And that was very powerful when she talks about that, because that's what she does every day.
Right.
I mean, it's not a, what should I do? It's like, okay, in Deuteronomy, it tells me this is what I need to do.
Right. And it's mentioned multiple times in Deuteronomy too.
Yes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But it's that same passage was basically, we don't have to guess. We don't have to try and figure it out. Like you said, this is the plan that it's meant to be. Driving to dance, driving to school, running errands, road trips, all the things. Whatever that looks like, of when you're standing shoulder to shoulder with your kids, with your family, building that up. So I think that all of the little tips we ran through in the episode with her, whether that's starting with reading, journaling, getting them to give you feedback. Hey, tell me one thing you got out of that passage. But in a less homeworky way, I can be really guilty of that. Like, let's fill out a worksheet.
That's the teacher
journal.
in you.
Little journaling, like they're like,
your homework assignment.
There's a meme going around, like a little thing of like, when your mom writes the handwritten, a comedian is hilarious, does it, but he's like, the handwritten list from your mom is like, oh no, clean my room, read a chapter in the Bible,
Yes.
So it's like, we don't want to make it so that it feels like work. It's more just that natural conversation.
Definitely.
So, but and she had one more verse. Can I share this?
Definitely.
So she used the model of when in the book of Luke, the writer of that gospel is referencing Jesus. It says he went down to Nazareth and he was obedient. It's like kind of telling about him. And then it says, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. And she said she just prays that over her kids.
Yeah.
And kind of shows them that's the standard. Obviously, it's Jesus, but we are trying to become more Christ-like. We are trying to grow. And whatever you're given, I think there's this misunderstanding sometimes that some people are faith people and some people are not faith people. Yeah. But faith is something that can increase. And it's mentioned that way in the New Testament. Like, if you have this much, try to get this much.
Yeah.
Do things that increase your faith. So.
I definitely, that's a verse that I actually pray over my son every night during our prayer time. And I think, he kind of rolls his eyes sometimes about it, but I'm like, if you can say that you are a wise person, you can probably get through almost any circumstance in life. Right. And it's very important. So I pray that you will seek wise counsel if you need it. You will seek wisdom from the Bible when you have questions, that you will, so that you can grow in wisdom and stature in favor of God and man. And so I think that it's very important. It's kind of a shorter verse, but it's very powerful.
Oh yeah. And if you think in terms of Jesus being the model for that, that's just so powerful. I love it.
We definitely hope that today has been encouraging to you. We wanted to, like we said, take time to reflect on what Kelly shared with us and how it is important, as moms on the journey of motherhood, in the sisterhood of motherhood, to just take the time and to just really emphasize how we can spiritually impact our kids in the car rides, in the little things and the big things, and just throughout their entire lives.
Right. And it doesn't stop when they're adults.
No.
It's a little more of what that friendship looks like. Kelly mentioned the coaching stage where you're being called in during a crisis sometimes or during something. But as we can tell you, that big rewards, big harvest in not giving up and in continuing to pursue God's best for your kids.
Definitely.
And share your faith, pass it on. Let your kids now be able to be equipped to do that for others.
Definitely. So, well, I'll end with our verse that we've had for our Sisterhood of Motherhood season. It's from Hebrews 10:24-25, and it says, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." And we just really just love to anchor in that verse and to just encourage you with that. And so as we leave here today, be refreshed,
be encouraged,
and stay well grounded.